Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. If you've ever tried intermittent fasting, or maybe a longer, prolonged fast, you probably focused entirely on your metabolism, right? You were tracking exactly what you ate, the minute you ate it, and precisely how many hours you logged on your fasting app. We tend to treat fasting like this strictly mechanical process, but today we're going to completely flip that idea on its head. We'll reveal why your success in fasting actually depends far less on your physical metabolism and way more on your mind. We're diving right into the fascinating intersection of psychology and physiology to uncover why your mental state literally alters how your body processes fuel.
So, think about it. We generally just assume that a calorie deficit is a simple mathematical equation. In the absence of food, our bodies will mechanically just burn fat. But what if your emotions are actually holding the steering wheel? Recent clinical data suggests something absolutely mind-blowing. Who you are at your core, your actual personality traits and emotional baseline, changes the exact type of tissue your body breaks down for energy. I know it sounds a bit like science fiction, but the data is incredibly clear.
Let's dive right into Section 1, Personality and Body Composition.
To really grasp this connection, we're going to look at a groundbreaking 2025 study published in the journal PLOS One. Researchers tracked a group of healthy adults through a highly monitored 5-day water fast. The goal was to see exactly how their psychological traits impacted their physical outcomes. Over those 5 days, the participants lost an average of 4.25 kilograms. That's a little over 9 pounds. Across the board, they saw a significant decrease in waist circumference, lower circulating glucose, lower insulin, and higher ketones. Now that's a standard physiological response. But beneath that impressive average weight loss number, the specific type of weight they lost, whether it was fat or lean muscle mass, was shockingly linked to their psychological profile.
Here's where it gets wild. The researchers found that participants who scored high in emotional intelligence and low in impulsivity before the fast experienced highly targeted, super efficient fat loss. They preserved their muscle and burned through their fat stores, just like you'd want. But on the flip side, participants who scored high in neuroticism and baseline tension actually caused their bodies to lose significantly more lean muscle mass. Their bodies literally burned an entirely different fuel source based entirely on their mental state. That is a complete paradigm shift for how we view weight loss and fasting.
To quote the study directly, they concluded, higher emotional intelligence and lower impulsivity were associated with greater fat loss, while neuroticism and tension predicted greater lean body mass loss. So, what should you take away from this? Well, if you have an unchecked, stressed-out mind during a fast, you can literally signal your body to break down your hard-earned muscle instead of burning stored fat. When psychological tension is high, your body basically hits the panic button. It senses a crisis, triggering an elevation in stress hormones like cortisol, which prompts the body to hoard fat and break down lean tissue for quick glucose.
Moving on to Section 2, From Irritability to Vigor.
Okay, so if tension is the absolute enemy of fat loss, we really need to understand the psychological timeline of a fast so we can manage that stress and save our muscle. And that timeline, it almost always starts with that dreaded feeling of hunger. To master your fast, you absolutely have to master ghrelin. Ghrelin is this powerful hunger hormone produced in your stomach. On days 1 and 2 of a fast, as your body dumps its stored carbohydrates, your glycogen reserves, ghrelin levels spike intensely, right around the exact time you'd normally sit down to eat. It operates on a strict habitual clock. This physiological spike severely tests your mental resolve, causing waves of irritability, fatigue, and intense hunger. This is the critical window where your tension peaks and your muscle mass is most at risk.
But when we map mood directly against metabolism over a 5-day fast, the clinical shift is pretty incredible. As blood glucose drops and ketone bodies simultaneously rise, which signals the metabolic switch to fat burning, we see an equally dramatic shift in mood. By day 5, the data clearly shows that tension significantly drops off, and this profound sense of vigor simply takes over. The psychological challenge completely morphs. You transition from fighting those intense physical hunger cues to experiencing a mix of accomplishment, deep mental clarity, and surprisingly high energy levels.
So how do we get there? Let's explore that in Section 3, Decoding Your Hunger Signals.
To successfully navigate those really tough early days of spiking ghrelin and reach that promised state of vigor without losing muscle, you have to master a vital psychological skill. You have to learn to play detective and distinguish between actual physiological starvation and simple emotional cravings. True physical hunger, it builds very gradually. It's a low-energy feeling that could be satisfied by pretty much any nutritious meal. Emotional hunger, on the other hand, strikes like lightning. It's a sudden, dopamine-driven desire for very specific comfort foods, what researchers often call brain hunger. And then there's sensory hunger, triggered just because you walked past a bakery and smelled fresh bread. Knowing exactly which type of hunger you are dealing with strips the craving of its psychological power and immediately lowers your tension.
And please don't fall for the sensory and physical traps, because your body can be incredibly deceptive. During a fast, as your insulin drops, your kidneys increase sodium excretion. Basically, it flushes out water and vital minerals. So that fatigue, the headaches, or the sudden difficulty concentrating you're feeling, often that's just your body begging for sodium, potassium, and basic hydration. It's not a true need for food, it's an electrolyte imbalance expertly disguised as severe hunger. Rehydrating properly with a pinch of salt can completely eliminate what you thought was a fast-breaking craving.
Let's pull it all together in Section 4, Strategies for Fasting Success.
Now that we know unchecked tension ruins our body composition, how do we actually build science-backed psychological strategies to optimize our fast? Well, clinical protocols recommend treating your eating habits like a psychological puzzle. First, try implementing cognitive behavioral therapy techniques to identify the root of why you want to eat. Is it stress? Are you just bored? Practice mindful, deep belly breathing to calm your nervous system and simply ride out the craving. Remember, they usually pass in just 20 minutes. Also, redesign your physical environment. Remove those highly palatable trigger foods completely from sight. Keep it journaled to track non-hunger triggers so you can anticipate them. And crucially, prioritize 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Studies confirm that sleep deprivation directly disrupts your hormones, spiking your ghrelin and destroying your willpower before you even get out of bed.
As the old saying goes, you cannot manage what you do not measure. It is incredibly helpful to track your internal metrics to keep your mind engaged in the process. Experts highly recommend getting a DEXA scan before and after a prolonged fast. Think about it. A standard bathroom scale will only tell you that you lost 10 pounds. It won't tell you if that was 10 pounds of dangerous visceral fat or if it was 5 pounds of water and 5 pounds of lean muscle mass that you just burned because your tension and neuroticism were running too high. Measure the real data so you can actually manage your progress.
As we wrap up this explainer, the biggest takeaway is that fasting is profoundly psychological. It's a biological stressor, and your emotional reaction to that stress literally dictates the physiological results inside your body. So before you start your next fast, prepare your emotional intelligence. Proactively manage your stress and master those hunger cues. If you can do that, the targeted fat loss and that amazing mental vigor will naturally follow. So the real question is, are you mentally ready to fast? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.